Hey y'all, so this week I had the wonderful privilege of getting to watch an early screener for Finch, Tom Hanks's newest movie and the newest Apple original film. And if you have Apple TV Plus this Friday, you are absolutely not going to want to miss this movie. Finch follows Tom Hanks as Finch, who is a man living in isolation as one of the only human survivors of a massive solar flare that has destroyed Earth. His only companion is his dog and a robot who he builds to take care of his dog in the event that he is no longer able to do so. I want to try to avoid spoilers as much as possible, so this opening part of the review will be spoiler free, and then if there are any spoilers, I will make sure to tag them pretty clearly. The robot that Finch builds is surprisingly but heartwarmingly human. That's the phrase I would use to describe this film in general. It is not something I at all thought I would get emotional over, but this film has me rethinking the things I take as important or things I might take for granted in this life and kind of the complexities of what it means to be human. What's so great about this robot that Finch builds is that the AI and the science behind the robot is not really explored that much, which may bother major sci-fi fans or those in engineering or computer science who want a little bit more of an explanation as to why this is possible. But for those just looking for a feel-good movie, I think the removal of this really in-depth or time-consuming sci-fi explanation and telling, not showing, is fantastic because it allows the robot to develop way quicker in the film than you probably would initially assume is possible for a robot of the same type, but it also kind of cuts out the need for it to be realistic. It really focuses on the emotions there or what the robot is able to learn, comprehend, and do in different situations. And it does allow for the film itself to come to the necessary conclusion without feeling like any aspect of the science was initially set up to be realistic and then completely rushed through. As always, Tom Hanks is wonderful in this film, and I say that even despite the fact that I feel this character is maybe the least likable character I've ever personally seen Tom Hanks play. I obviously haven't seen every single film Tom Hanks has ever been in, but Finch can come across as very gruff and hardened at times. He is an isolated person who does not care much for mistakes or delays in his plans, especially when those plans are determining his dog and the robot's survival in certain situations. But I also find him to be a really relatable character in the sense that there are aspects of all of our personalities that if we were one of the last remaining humans who had survived something awful and who were going through incredibly tough circumstances, that not all of our best qualities would shine. And so I found this to be maybe one of the best portrayals of a sci-fi hero that I've seen in recent years because he just felt so human. Because to me, that's what this film is about being human and the complexities involved in that and how different situations allow us to see where that humanity starts and ends. Technically, I don't know that this film is the most visually significant or interesting I've seen all year. I do really enjoy the color palette of the film. I think it works well in this apocalyptic solar landscape, and it does allow certain scenes in the film to really stand out when they diverge from that established color palette. Visually, it's not like a lot of other sci-fi films you may have seen this year, but I do think it is one that the visuals aren't the most important part of it. And that gets me to the story, which I think is beautifully paced, beautifully acted. As I've said before, the emotions throughout this are woven so well into the logistical beats of the plot. If Finch chooses to do one thing over another or does a specific action, I feel like it has not only a logistical purpose, but an emotional weight to it that a lot of stories don't have so tightly interwoven together. It's usually like an action happens, and then after several actions, there's an emotional repercussion of those actions. But in this film, I feel like because the cast and the scope of this film is so narrow that you're really able to have all of those beats be extremely meaningful. This is the part just because I feel like I need to state it in a review of this film that has spoilers, so if you have not yet seen the film, please click away at this point because I don't want to spoil this movie for you because it is so beautiful and I really recommend that you watch it. The robot comes to be known as Jeff, picks his own name. The relationship with Finch and Jeff is one I think is so interesting because at one point in the film, Finch specifically says to Jeff, "I didn't build you for companionship, I built you for the sake of survival," which this film on the outskirts is about survival and surviving an apocalypse and the post-apocalyptic world, but it is really about a man who loves his dog so much and who his dog represents so much of what it means for him to be human and hang on to his humanity, that he needs to protect this dog's life, even when we learn extremely quickly in the film, which is a great plot device, that Finch is dying of some form of radiation exposure or cancer in some way or another. This is beautifully shown through his process of scanning books and specifically reading a lot of books about gamma radiation, gamma rays, and other types of sicknesses that can come from that type of exposure. And so that entire sequence of his bunker and the things he's doing to ensure not only the survival of himself, but of intellectual material and his dog is so well done. And I think that transfer of humanity from Finch, as flawed as it might be, to Jeff the robot is so beautiful that by the end of the film does not feel like it's missing Tom Hanks' character. It feels like that role has been filled by this robot who is just as loving toward this dog and who may be able to take some of Finch's flaws, as a son might do to the sins of a father, might try to progress forward and change things to make the world a better place. As in the end, Jeff and the dog are willing to go find other humans in San Francisco and explore what those connections and trusting relationships can be like. At its core, I feel like this film is so beautiful, not because it's a sci-fi film, but because it uses the sci-fi premise to explore how our humanity exists today in a non-apocalyptic world, where we do things every day that may be choices that bring us either pride or shame or make us a better or worse human. But at the end of the day, we have to live with all of those things. And I think this film, as in life, at sometimes our unfortunate worst moments, we are able to find the true beauty and meaning behind life and our purpose for living. As Finch teaches Jeff, there are times to have fun, there are times to survive, but you kind of have to have a balance to all of these things. And I think that's what this movie reminded me and why it took me so aback emotionally when I really did not expect it to. Overall, I absolutely loved Finch and I really highly recommend it to you. It would make for not only a really emotional solo viewing, but a really great experience with friends and families as we go into this time of thankfulness and connection with our loved ones. Through a very narrow scope, this movie explores a very powerful view of the human experience that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. So please, if you do indeed have an Apple TV Plus account or someone you know who has one, urge them to watch this movie because I promise you will not regret it. That is going to be it for my review for Finch. If you have seen the movie, please let me know down below what you thought of the movie and even maybe your contrast in viewing experience and expectations, because I think this movie is really one that is just a hidden treasure if you're willing to take a look at it. Be sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed this review, because I make plenty of other reviews, trailer reactions, and TV and movie recommendation videos that you're not going to want to miss. Thank you all again for watching. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you all in my very next video. Bye, everyone.